Welcome, everyone. My name is Michelle Rapp from the Office of Alumni Relations, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Career Strategy. We're excited to have the second webinar about using strengths in the job search. And many people were able to join us for the first one, and perhaps some of you that didn't were able to hear the recording of the first session. So I'm going to introduce Anne Grieves, who's teaching the webinar, and she is an assistant director in Northeastern's Career Development Office. And she also has a private career coaching practice. Through assessments and in-depth conversations with people of all ages and backgrounds, Anne helps individuals explore career paths for professional fulfillment and success. She is a certified Strengths Finder and Myers-Briggs Type Indicator administrator and enjoys using assessments to help people gain the self-awareness they need to successfully navigate and enjoy their careers. So today we'll be learning about how to use strengths in the job search.
Hi everyone. I think your audio might be on for today's session. We wanted to try it out. So can you introduce yourself or say hello just so we can see if it works? You have to click the microphone icon if you have a mic on your computer at the bottom of the screen. If there's a line through it, if you just click that, then your audio could be on. And if not, just write in the chat that if it is or isn't on, just so we know how we're going to communicate today. Okay. Okay. Let's see who else is on. Kathy, do you have a mic? We have Kathy, Christine, and Vanessa. Okay. If you don't have a mic, just if you can send in a quick chat that you are not able to use your mic, but you communicate by chat. Okay, I still haven't. Okay, Vanessa, you can chat. Great. Kathy, Christine. Okay, well, Kathy and Christine, I hope that you can hear me. And we have somebody else just coming in as well. Okay, Christine, great. You can hear me. Kathy? And Dan? Okay, having trouble. You're having trouble, but you can hear me. I'm assuming that's what it says. Okay, that's okay. Yes, great. Okay, as long as you guys can hear me, that's fine. Hi, Dan. Welcome. We were trying to see if anyone had video, but it looks like most people don't, so we're going to continue to communicate by chat as we did last week. All right, so welcome to part 2. We're going to do a little bit of a review on some pieces of last week's session, but we're going to really dive into how do we apply our strengths into our job search strategy, and how do we think about the job search process through the lens of our strengths. So let me pull up our PowerPoint. And I have 2 quick polls for us to kind of get started with. Okay, if you can't see the PowerPoint screen, just, again, send in a quick chat. But hopefully you can all see the presentation. So my first question to you is, how long have you been looking for a job? So if you're just starting, click 1, and if you've been doing it for what you think is already too long, you can click 2. Or if you haven't even started, I guess that should have been a third option for the future. Okay. All right, so 3 of you are just starting, 2 of you have been doing it too long, and 4, how about the other 4? Okay, 2. Okay. Well, hopefully in whatever place you are, you'll be able to revise your strategy to then move forward and be more effective in this process. My next question to you is this. How many of you know exactly what you want to do, have some ideas of what you want to do, or have no idea of what you want to do? So I guess 1 is A, 2 is B, and 3 is C. Okay. So most of you have some ideas of the types of jobs you would want. Great. 1 of you knows exactly what you want. No one has said that you have no idea, which is also good. So in any of these, whatever you selected, again, having this awareness is going to help you move forward. Either if you know what you want, this will help you figure out how you can actually get there and how you can communicate this to other people if you're doing informational interviews or when you're out on interviews as well. If you have some ideas of the types of jobs that you want, then having this insight can help you really narrow down your focus so that you have more clarity of why you want what you think you want and why you think you'd be good at that. So that's what we're going to talk about as we go through the rest of this. So just as a review, if you remember from last time, so if you are able to find a job where you're operating from the lens of your strengths, you'll be much more happy and much more satisfied in your job. You'll be less likely to be doing this again in the very near future. Yes, you'll probably do it again someday, but hopefully when you're ready and need a change and not because you're unhappy with what you're doing. So this, if the next professional move for you can be really intentional and allow you to find a place where you'll really thrive, you'll be able to stay there and make a difference and maybe grow and mentor others. So hopefully that is my goal for you, to be able to find that place. And again, how can this help me? So going through this, and you can apply this to your personal goals as well as your professional goals, but it allows you to really think about who you are, what you do, and how you do what you do. So for example, one of my strengths is woo. So I love meeting new people professionally and personally and making connections with them and having really strong, authentic connections because I also have empathy. So it works in my personal life because I'm meeting a lot of new people and then figuring out, how far to take these different relationships. But in a professional setting, it works as well because it allows me to figure out where are the opportunities where I have access to be able to meet a lot of people if that's where I get my energy. So really thinking about who you are and then the types of roles you're considering, and will that allow you to be who you are? Will that allow you to be effective and then make a contribution in some way? So thinking about that as well. So this is why this is important, because it helps you, it gives you that insight to be able to really be more intentional about the beginning of your search, how you're conducting your search, how you're talking about your search to others, branding yourself, and then finally applying for different jobs and then interviewing. We talked last week about the process of really understanding your strengths, and if you weren't on last week's call, you can definitely listen to the recording again. But there is a 3-part process, so naming, claiming, aiming. So last week we kind of started talking about the naming and claiming steps of this process. So naming was really understanding the meaning of that word, of that strength. Why is it a strength? What is the power of it? What is so great about that word? On its own, it just doesn't look like anything so great. But when you think about what you can do with it, and really understanding what you can do with it for somebody else. That's the naming part. Then claiming is thinking about your previous successes and did any of your strengths have a role in any of these successes? How did you do what you did at that time? And then how can you use this going forward? So understanding and making the connections between your strengths and previous successes. I don't remember if I mentioned last week 2 examples where this kind of makes sense. So I'll just quickly mention them again. But there was a woman who was in medical school, and she was trying to decide what kind of doctor to be because she wanted to go into medicine. So after she understood her strengths, she didn't have many relationship building strengths. So that wasn't something that was motivating her to do, to really use. So she ruled out being a primary care physician or anything where she would have to have long-term relationships with her patients. She decided that she wanted to go in, do a quick fix, get some feedback, and then move on to the next patient. So she became a dermatologist. So that helped her, that informed her decision on how to carve out her path within the medical field. I also worked with a woman, and I might have mentioned this one too, and she was looking for project manager positions, and having an understanding of her strengths and how she was able to be a successful project manager using her strengths and not, how she assumed other people went approach these positions. She was able to really connect her previous successes to the strengths, and then to be able to talk to her interviewers about how she would get these jobs done and how she would be successful in the future. So having this understanding for yourself is just really critical because it allows you to have the clarity, but then also to be able to present yourself with confidence that, yes, you are the ideal person for this job, and this is how to achieve success. So today we're really going to focus on the aiming piece of it and how to apply this going forward. So it starts with having this awareness. So having this awareness allows you to leverage the strength. So I don't know if those of you who were on last week's call were able to pay attention to how your strengths played out for you this week. I would love to hear if anyone had any experiences where they noticed certain things about themselves that were, kind of new realizations. I'd love for you to type them in. I'll read them out to the group as I see them coming in. But I think, we all can see when we can hear other people making these connections, it helps us as well. So having this insight will give you an awareness of, again, like where you can thrive, what kinds of roles, what type of culture, what types of people, what types of conversations. Those are the things that you can identify for yourself that will energize you. So having that awareness is just the beginning. Then, after you have that awareness, you can start developing your professional identity. So this is the beginning of your brand. So again, who are you and what you do? This is where this is important. And this is right now just the beginning of developing this insight and getting this understanding. Eventually, it's finding the language to then develop the brand, write your LinkedIn profile, use these stories on your resume and cover letter, and then in informational interviews, etc. So again, this is just the process of how this works. After you have a sense of your professional identity, you can start focusing on the target. So a lot of people think, I have great skills and I can use them in so many different ways. And then they start applying to all sorts of different jobs. And although it sounds like, okay, that's flexible and that's great and maybe you'll have more options, but in the reality is that you have fewer options if you approach it that way because you're not focused, and the employers will see that. So once you start identifying what you want, you have to sort of flip that and think about, how do I position myself to what the employer wants? And what the employer wants is someone who is focused and wants something specific. They have the hunger for that specific role They have the hunger for a specific company or organization. So being able to identify specific reasons why you're targeting a goal or an organization. So it's really important to be able to position yourself correctly. And if you are not focused on your application, the employers will see that, and you probably won't make it into that next round in order to convince them through an interview. So that is why the clarity is really important. And after we go through some of this intro, we're going to look at job descriptions to help you understand how you can position yourself and how you identify the specific targets for yourself. So once you have the identity and the target, you speak with authentic, well, I changed it on the other slide, but it's like an authentic voice. So you can really say, you know, I would say, I'm a career counselor. I love the opportunities to meet people, to draw them out, to connect with them, to learn their stories. There are 10 career counselors in the career development office here. We would all speak differently about how we approach our jobs. So really being able to sift through everything and get to the root of how you do it, what you need to be effective. For me, it's who are my ideal clients that I'm most effective with, and really thinking through some of the stuff. I would recommend, you know, having in place either a journal or an online document where you can keep thinking about some of these thoughts, because as you start seeing this play out for you, you're going to start making these connections and crafting these stories for yourself. And it's just great to be able to write them down and allow your, you know, allow yourself to just have that in back of your mind and be thinking about it. More thoughts will come to you the more you think about them. So all of that, those 3 steps or 4 steps, will then hopefully lead you to professional fulfillment. And again, this is when you need to be able to articulate to the employer when you're having that interview that you are the best candidate for this position. You're confident, you know how you'll be successful, you know what they're looking for, you know what the gaps are, and so you can speak to that with confidence and assure them that you are somebody that they can trust to get this done. The best recommendation before that step is really doing a lot of the informational interviews to understand, once you have the target, what are some of the challenges that they're facing, and then how is somebody like you going to be helpful, and what kind of contribution you can make to that to help the organization grow. So the more information you have about your target, the stronger the connection will be between what you can do for the organization and then how you're going to do that. I want to just stop a second to see if there are any questions. You guys are pretty quiet. No questions or comments. Again, I'd love to hear if anybody's noticed anything about their strengths last week, having this awareness just before we go on to the next section of the exercise. You guys all here? Still here? Raise your hand if you're, okay, getting comfortable. Okay, good. So, okay. Just wanted to check in. Okay. If we were all in a room, this would be real formal, and you guys would, you know, be sharing and asking questions, so just want to make sure that this is making sense. Okay. Let me just take a quick look. Exercising caution with our strengths. Vanessa, you just posted, yes, exercising caution with strengths. So that's a great comment, because I don't know if you were on last week's call, but I mentioned to you that I heard another coach talking about when we act just out of instinct without pausing and thinking if this is going to be effective, sometimes that could backfire. So what you're saying about exercising caution is really important. So once you have a sense of the top 5 strengths, thinking about, like, you can think about them as dials, 0 to 5. And sometimes you're going to be operating at a 5 with 1 or 2. Sometimes you're going to be operating at a 0. But the more you can go in and sort of first observe and see how to use what you have is going to be really important. So whether, like for me, it's woo. Sometimes I again, love going into a situation with a lot of people. I can go up to them and start talking to them. That's not always effective. So I've learned that I have to hold back, get a sense of the situation, kind of get a sense of who the people are, figure out who the people are that I want to talk to and for what reason, and then I can turn it up a bit. So I would go from like 0 to 1 to 2 gradually. Same thing with activator, for example. If any of you have activator, you know, being able to hold back before really digging in to start doing something, because not everyone can move that quickly. So understanding the basement, I guess that's what we call them, of each of your strengths and when it can play against you. So that's important. Okay, great. All right, so the 34 strengths gives us a lens that we look at other possibilities, you know, through that lens. So for example, raise your hand if you take pictures. It could be frequently, it could be once in a while. Okay. Most of us take pictures, right? Okay. So when we think about how we take pictures, why we take pictures, the purpose, in a way you can think, you can apply the strength filter to this as well. So right now I'm applying it to possibly a hobby, and then we can see how it translates into the professional area as well. So let's say you have responsibility. So if you have responsibility, you might be the person that takes pictures that others count on to capture memorable moments at different events. If you have relator, you're someone who finds pleasure in taking pictures of family and friends. If you have maximizer, you might take a lot of shots of the same image and then refine the image until it's perfect in your eyes. So really like using that maximizer. If you're a learner, you might want to take a photography class. You might want to learn about new equipment, but it's more of the learning about photography. You're a student of photography. If you're analytical, you're a technician. You think of it as an art, but also a science, and you really want to master the technique. So motivation comes out differently for all of us in anything that we do. And again, just like I talked about the project manager and the doctor, it comes through with anything. So if you think of any roles, for each person, it's going to look different. And it's, again, presenting yourself with authenticity that you can reach the goals that are set out for you. Again, this is a review from last week that the strengths, thanks, Michelle, are all in these different domains. And all of us do all of these things. All of us execute. We get things done. If we don't, then that would be a problem. All of us influence in some way. We have to get buy-in somehow. We build relationships, and we also process thoughts. But it's how we do it. So if we have strengths in the top 5 in one of these domains, then it's something that comes really naturally to us. And if not, then we find where the motivation comes from in order to make that happen. So my husband has 4 strengths in executing and is not focused on relationship building at all, but he understands the necessity of it in the professional world, networking, etc. So his motivation comes from it making it a task. So he makes building relationships a task that's going to serve him well in the future. He enjoys the process once he has that understanding of how to connect and the specific people he can connect with. But the motivation isn't, like for me, I think most of mine are in the relationship. So that's what motivates me. That's what drives me. And that's what actually drives me to get things done, because I don't have anything in my top 5 in the executing. So it's not letting people down, not letting them think badly of me. So again, thinking about where your motivation comes from for each of these domains, and then if you have something in the top 5 in them, knowing how you're using that. A lot of people use learner for relationship building because learners are naturally curious. They ask questions, they're authentic about it. So a lot of learners use learner as a relationship building strength. You can also use responsibility as an influencing strength because people see you as somebody who's dependable, and so you become that person to them, and then you have the influence. So understanding where that comes from for each of you. Okay. So I did a couple of job searching workshops here on campus for different groups of people. I guess most of them have been groups of engineers, which was really interesting because the first time I did it, there were 130 students in the workshop. All 34 strengths came up as being in somebody's top 5, which was really interesting, that everyone who was in engineering had very different strengths. So what we did was we went through different job descriptions. So here's an example of one. This was just a mechanical engineer. And the demo was to kind of go through the job description and find phrases, words, sentences that speak to different strengths. So when you identify your top 5, thinking about the connections that you can make between what's written in the job description to your top 5. And it can start, with about the company section, about the people, and then it gets into the responsibilities. So in this one job description, I just want to say if you're having trouble seeing the text, on your screen in the upper left-hand corner is a magnifying glass with a plus sign. So if you click on that, it'll make the text bigger. So if you're having trouble. So just out of this one description, again, I went through it and found 18 different strengths. So that is just to say that for that job, anyone with any of these strengths could apply for that job. A lot of people, again, they have the same technical skills. They write very cover letters without tailoring them for the positions for the company. So that's not going to sound authentic. It doesn't convey the message that I really want to work here because of this, or this is what I can do because of my strengths. So being able to connect your strengths to what you're reading, what you're seeing, will make a huge difference. Once you can identify that for yourself, and again, in your journal if you're going to have one, or somewhere online, just writing down the phrases and then maybe thinking about the connections of where they might have appeared for you in the past. So for example, if you are somebody with competition, then thinking about the times when you felt energized by the fact that there was competition and you were successful because of that. Or if you have, let's say consistency or something in the executing domain, how that drives you internally. Okay, Suzanne has a question. How do you figure out, based on job description words, which strengths they fall under? So that's up to you. That's kind of, when you're reading it, let's say you have communication, you see communication. It should kind of ring a bell in your mind, like, okay, they want someone with communication. They focus on that. They place importance on that. I have that, so that's great. So that's a phrase that's going to stand out for you. So that's a good question. If you're a learner, the word learning appears in the job description. So you're interested in learning the inner workings of a company. So that's something that each individual, I think, will go through and find for themselves. And then be able to, before writing the cover letter or even tailoring the resume, think about the previous successes where they've used those that are relatable to the job description. I want to show you another one. So this is a position at MathWorks. Again, it's an engineering one. I have a non-engineering one to show you as well. But in this one, we go through, also when you're going through, you want to make sure that, everything that's required, you do have 100%. You meet 100% of the required qualifications. And then when they talk about the preferred or desired qualifications, you have about 80%. So that's the first step, making sure that you're qualified. Once you're qualified, then it's looking for the different words and phrases. So in this one, I found 24, but different words can speak to different people. So growth, I thought could be maximizer. It could work for strategic as well. It could work for futuristic because you're thinking about the future. So how do these words resonate for you, and how do you see them? And we all have different perspectives. So once you have clarity of the connection, then it's going to be much easier to position yourself for that company. Does anyone have a job description that they can use to work with? If not, I have one for you as well. Okay. Raise your hand if you have one. Okay. A couple of you. All right. Without knowing individually what you're going for, this is just a quick exercise to take you through a job description. So I have one here for, this is a project manager, associate project manager role at Rulala. So again, you can enlarge the position, and then you can just use the scroll bar on the right-hand side to kind of go through it. So if you have a job description, use what you have. If you don't, use this one. But if you can take a few minutes to read this through and identify maybe between 3 and 6 words or phrases that stick out for you, and then just write them in the chat box, just so we see how this one job description might appeal to different people differently. And again, this may not be anything that you're considering, but finding some phrases that could work for the person that you are if you had this interest. Does that make sense, you guys? Is that clear? It's just taking a few minutes to practice going through the description. Okay, great. Okay, Suzanne, identifying communicate to creative leadership, strength and communication. Vanessa's communication. Kathy, detail, organized processes, resolution, insights. Kathy, what strength does this appeal to? Yeah, Suzanne, that's exactly right. This is what I want you guys to do. Oh, Kathy, have you taken the assessment yet? Okay. Let's see. Do you have executing themes, executing strengths in the purple category? Okay. So what you're describing is something that would appeal to someone with those types of strengths. Yep, exactly. Achiever and responsibility. Those speak to the organized and process, detailed. Let's see. Insights, more of learner and strategic. I think those are more abstract. Okay, that's great. Suzanne, you said maintain and contribute to a friendly, relaxed environment. Woo as a strength, yes. Woo and communication are often seen together with sometimes with positivity. So those 3, it's often that you get 2 out of 3 of those. Vanessa, apprise of project scope and or timeline concerns. Restorative, yes. Exactly. Yeah, discipline. That's very true. Okay, so this is an exercise that, would take some time for you to really dig into it. Dan, thank you. Achiever, keep self and others organized while prioritizing projects. Yes, exactly. But and for achievers, it's really important just to have constant projects, because once you finish one, you're just on to the next, and prioritizing is definitely there. So understanding how your strengths resonate, or how the position, I guess, resonates for your strengths. So again, all of you, or I think most of you, found phrases in this description that if you were to try to sell yourself, you would work with that. You would try to, again, find the phrases and then make connections between what you've done in the past that's similar to what they're asking for, and then to be able to talk about that in the future. Okay, great. Any questions on this? If this was something we were doing together, this would be, we would be sharing a lot more of this. So is there anything else about this exercise that you have some questions on? And if you have audio, you can just pop in and ask. Okay. Well, the next handout, and we will email you this with the evaluation. There's going to be I'll get to that. I got a little bit ahead of myself. So I'll show you the chart, but I think that's going to be helpful. So once you go through the job description and find these phrases, then it's figuring out, again, like how you can serve, how your strengths can serve you and the organization or the department. So it's understanding what you need in a job to thrive, but also what you're able to contribute. So I just have a couple of examples to share you with this. So this is Joe. One of his strengths is analytical, so he's a logical and objective decision maker. So really figuring out what he needs, what he enjoys. He enjoys working with facts and data. Analytical people definitely need opportunities for thinking, for critiquing, for comparing, evaluating, etc. And then you just need to have a lot of opportunities to get different types of information and to be able to use that information to feel confident about the decisions that you have to make. So for analytical people, oftentimes to know that you're making the right decision, you need to have the background of the data and the facts. So once you have that, once you can see that, okay, this job will offer this, then it's being able to focus on that aspect of how you make decisions with confidence to convince the employer. One thing, though, is that once you have a sense of your needs, when you're doing informational interviews, is knowing how to ask the questions that will get those answers for you. So if you know you need facts and data, figuring out how you're going to ask, like what types of data do they work with, how much data, is it how is the process of collecting and evaluating data? So being really strategic about the questions that you're asking. If you have relationship building themes, really understanding the culture is really, really important for those people, as well as for influencing people. So this is Joe with analytical. The next one we have is Courtney, who is a learner. So again, her needs are, learners need to be able to learn always and constantly. Once they stop learning, there's boredom. So knowing what to ask about the learning opportunities, professional development, in the informational interviews, as well as when you're asking questions in your interviews. You always want to come in prepared with questions. So these questions are just more authentic and more real, because you might need a job, but you don't want to end up in the wrong job and be doing this again. And then again, the contributions that you can make using your strengths. Okay, then Sarah has achiever. We talked a little bit about achiever. Achievers need constant projects. Sometimes the challenges for achievers are, if you're managing people who are not achievers, that's something to pay attention to, because they may not be as driven to keep looking for new projects as you are. If your manager doesn't have achiever, then sometimes it's a matter of holding back, because they may not be able to relate to your drive of just constantly achieving and looking for more work. So understanding the downside, I guess, of the strength. I don't remember if we sent you the basement handout, but we can send that out to you as well, so you can see the upsides and the downsides of each of the strengths, so you can know how to leverage that. And then we have communication. So a natural storyteller. So communication people need people. People with communication will be miserable, I know we talked about this last time, if they don't have opportunities to talk, to tell stories, if they're in isolation. So really paying attention to that. Okay. So, yes, the slides, so the recording is available, which should make the slides available, but if not, I can send them out as a PDF as well. So this is the chart that I was mentioning before. Thinking about your strengths and the job description, and if it aligns with your strengths, and then writing it down. So just thinking sometimes is not enough, but really, using the writing technique to really make those connections. How will your strengths serve you in this role, and how will your strengths help you make an impact as a leader? So eventually, again, you want to be able to thrive. You want to make a difference. You want to make an impact. So even if we're not thinking about leadership roles, at the same time, we want to be known for how we can contribute. So thinking about not only how is it going to serve us in the projects that we will be assigned to do, but having being able to make that impact as somebody who maybe teaches others, mentors others, trains others. So if you have a job description, again, I want to give you a couple minutes to at least go through one or two of your strengths to talk about these 3 questions. And if you don't, I can put the other job description on. And we will send you this chart. So right now you can just use a piece of paper, but then you'll get this chart in your email. So if you can just take a couple minutes to talk about, again, how your strengths can serve you in the role, and as well as making an impact as a leader. You don't have to worry about the first question if this is not the role that you would be looking for. And if you can write it into the chat box, just maybe one of your strengths, and if it answers just one of the questions, how it can serve you in the role, or how it can have an impact for you as a leader. Okay, thanks, Christine. Strategic and input. Job description to establish methods of current and target customer feedback and needs, including regular user meetings. Exactly. So input is people with input, yes, they collect information, they know how to get information, they share information, and using information to help you make those strategic decisions, that is the right combination. Thank you. Work with input. Okay, Christine, I think that's you again. Relator work within cross-functional teams. Yeah, so Relator, you would get to know, oh, that's okay, Suzanne. So Relator would help you connect with different people on a very individual basis. So you're right. So if it's a cross-functional team, you would be able to make those connections and connect people with each other because you would have an in-depth understanding of the different individuals. And if any of you have any questions about any of your strengths, if something doesn't quite make sense, you can either chat, in the box, or send me a private message through here as well, or you can email me later on. Okay. Vanessa, thanks. Strong collaboration and communication and interpersonal skills. This would be under Woo, communication and maximizer. Yes. So can you say a little bit more how you see maximizer, how you would be using maximizer in this? It could be that maximizer would help you look for the strongest collaborators, most efficient, way to stimulate group excellence. Yes, exactly. Yep, all of those are influencing, so that would be great. So you might need to partner with the people with more on the executing, maybe? Okay, Dan. Empathy, maintain and contribute friendly, relaxed environment for effective team dynamics. Yes. So you, with empathy, yeah, so people with empathy can just have that sixth sense of being able to sense the emotions of a team. So that would definitely come in handy and allow you to kind of navigate the dynamics and lead people and move them forward. Exactly. Okay, so it sounds like people are sort of getting comfortable with this terminology and language and how to do this. So that's great. So once you start looking for jobs for yourselves and kind of reading through the job descriptions through the lens of your strengths, even going with a highlighter really helps, and then transferring that to your notebook or if you're using something online. But eventually, the more you do this, the more you go through this exercise, the more connections you'll be making. And then the second step is to really craft stories that highlight how you've achieved success. So thinking about maybe different accomplishments that you would want to highlight and picking them apart, and how did that play out for you? Why were you successful? What influenced that? So again, for somebody with competition, it could be that that's what they needed to achieve success. If it was someone with relay, it's that the connections to other people or the relationships with other people helped them in some way to become successful. So it's a process to get to this level of understanding. So it's not going to be instant. I mean, I'm still, I got certified like over a year and a half ago, and I'm still seeing how these these play out for me in my own life. So constantly thinking about different examples and having those aha moments. So again, like yesterday in a conversation, we were talking about how different people approach networking events, and some like to talk to some people, even different people with woo have different ideas or different ways or get their energy in different ways. So someone was saying how they go in and they just talk to different people really comfortably. And I realized that I would go in, and I think it's because of my empathy too, I would probably want to talk to everyone first and then pick out the people that I felt the strongest connection with to then go back to them because of the empathy piece. So again, how do the strengths work together with each other, not just individually? And then it's the branding piece and developing your professional identity, thinking about the elevator pitch, using that language in your LinkedIn profile, not using actual words from your report, but thinking about what it means to you and how are you the way you are because of what you do. So using that to start with the LinkedIn profile. And then finally, cover letters and resumes, informational interviews, and then final interviews. Does that make sense? Any other questions? We're pretty much almost done. So I just want to make sure. You guys have been great, but I want to make sure that if anyone has any questions, then everyone can benefit from everybody's questions. Let's see. Yeah, your husband can take an assessment as well. Michelle and I will figure it out. Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Oh, and it's great, like, when you can do it with your spouse. I see that, it just helps. It helps a lot to understand, again, why they do certain things. I did it with my kids. So I have an 11 and a 13-year-old, so now when one says, well, why did she do that? I have an answer. I can say, well, like, one of them has competition, and so she pushes you out of the way to be first, not because she's trying to push you, but she wants to be first, and you're in her way. So, okay, great. Quick question about resumes. Is it okay for them to be over a page? I hear both sides, and it's pretty 50-50. So it depends on how much experience you have, how long you've been out, and if what you have is relevant. So Michelle can probably also chime in as well. We basically try to limit it to a page, but if everything that's on the resume is relevant, then usually 2 is fine as well, depending on the level of the role, and again, how many years of experience you've had. Oh, can I speak to the balancing act of thinking about yourself and your strengths, but also about thinking about what the employer cares about? So the employer cares about, well, the employer cares about performance. So if you have an understanding of what the responsibilities of the role are, then being able to convince them that you have that to be productive and to basically to achieve excellence in that role with what you have. I'm not sure if I'm answering that, Michelle. You can ask me with your mic if you want.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about, like, there's this process of looking at yourself and thinking about, how you uniquely get things done, but I think you just have to make sure that it's focused on what ultimately the employer cares about. So it seems like a balancing act between these different things.
Yes. Well, I think also, one question that I do ask, or I encourage people to ask in informational interviews, is that question, like, what does a successful candidate, or what would they be looking for in an applicant? So if you can get that information first, that's super helpful. If not, if you can figure out what it is that the employer is going to care about through questions, But as long as you, I guess the advice I also give is once you can talk about maybe if you can identify 4 accomplishments or highlights, or think about 4 things that you want the employer to know about you and how that's going to be relevant to them. And then being able to work those 4 stories into the questions. But you do need to have a sense of what they will be looking for, so you're not going in blind. But as long as the stories are examples that speak to what you can do that's relevant to the role, I think that is what's necessary. But I'm not sure if I'm answering. So
Yes, that works. Thank you.
okay. I have more experience in relevant info for the employers. So Vanessa, we work with alums, so you can schedule appointments. You can reach out to Michelle or me, and we can figure out how to best work with you. So feel free to reach out to us, and we can do a Skype call or look at your resume and work with you by email. Can other examples be provided for other strengths? Sure. I think so. Okay, thanks, Kathy. Yes. So if you email me, and if any of you email me, I can give you more information for what you're looking for. So that is definitely something I can do. I can send you some screenshots of some different resources as well. Any other thoughts, questions? Okay. Great. Or well, maybe Michelle, you and I could figure out like just a resource to email out to people that will have some other information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys were able to make it. I hope that this is just the beginning. So this 1-hour webinar is just kind of an intro of how to approach this going forward. But the work is really going to come from you. So it's an investment of time and energy and effort. But the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. And I promise.
Thank you, Anne. I think this is a great way. You've given us another way to look at job descriptions, and I think that reflection on strengths can really help with branding, because I think everyone's challenge is, what makes me unique and how to communicate that. So I think being able to do that analysis through the job description is really helpful.
Great, great. Well, we look forward to hearing from you, and yeah, please don't hesitate to email us.
Thanks everyone for your participation.
Yeah, so for all of you, if you go to the career development website, but we do have a lot of resources there as well, so feel free to check those out.
Great, and just so everyone knows, there will be more webinars that we're going to be sending out in the events emails coming up in the fall. In late September, we'll have one on being a successful freelancer, but these will continue on roughly a monthly basis, so we look forward to having you join us for webinars and live events as well. And thanks again to Anne for a great presentation.
My pleasure. Well, take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.